Okay, so well, thank you very much for coming to this session. In this session, we are going to be speaking in English with the Chinese interpreting. We have this session on experiences and reflections on green development. And I'm the moderator. My name is Lau Kin Chi. I'm an invited research fellow of the Chinese Institute of Hong Kong, a coordinator of the program on Cultures of Sustainability, Center for Cultural Research and Development of Lingnan University. And I'm one of the founding members of Global University for Sustainability. Today, we are very happy to have two speakers from Latin America who will be sharing their experiences. And they will each speak for 15 minutes, and then we will have half an hour for discussions and interactions. And we are very glad that Luis managed to just arrive. He flew from Shanghai this morning at 7 o'clock. So he must have gone to the airport at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. So we will first have Claudia, Miss Claudia Yadira Caballero. We are having Mariana. So we will be having Mariana Cristina Garcia Sojo from Venezuela to give her first presentation. She is researcher at the Venezuela People's Economic Observatory, focusing on gender-based violence, women's rights, and community development. So Mariana, thank you very much. You have 15 minutes.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is I'm honored to be here at the Global South-South Forum on Sustainability, where we gather to reflect on ecological, economic, and social alternatives rooted in the Global South. My presentation today will focus on the experiences of popular economies in Venezuela, which is a term developed by other colleagues in the Global South to mean forms of collective forms of collective organization that have emerged in response to systemic crisis, but that also carry within the seeds for deep social and economic transformation. As this forum emphasizes, green and sustainable futures are not only about environmental preservation, they are about building systems that center life, dignity, and community. The Venezuelan experiences that I will share today are not abstract models. They are real practices of agroecology, cooperative governance, and feminist organization around care work that challenge capitalist dominant paradigms of accumulation and extraction. In that spirit, I invite you to consider these stories not as isolated cases, but as part of a broader shared effort across the Global South to shape sustainable futures from below. The presentation today that I will be sharing with you is based on the findings from a research that I conducted with some colleagues in Venezuela back in 2020. This research explores how 6 grassroots initiatives are creating ways to reproduce life and sustain their communities amidst Venezuela's prolonged economic and political crisis. So let's begin by looking at the context that gave rise to this research. So the objective of the study was to analyze how these popular economies, or PEs, operate as grassroots responses to Venezuela's complex crisis. Since 2014, approximately, Venezuela has been undergoing a severe crisis characterized by extreme inflation, dollarization of domestic economy, and institutional collapse. Traditional economic models have failed to meet people's basic needs. So this research looked at how communities themselves are organizing alternatives focused not on profit, but on sustaining life. The key lens here is the term reproduction. How do people ensure survival, dignity, and continuity of their daily lives amidst these critical conditions? So Popular economies are by no means a single model. They are not cookie cutter mold of experiences. They are very diverse, often informal systems created for and by communities. They include cooperatives, communal markets, producer-consumer networks, even youth collectives. They operate outside the mainstream economy, often without formal recognition from the state, but they are by no means marginal or irrelevant. What defines them is a focus on use value over exchange value of goods, based on solidarity over competition and on cooperation over exploitation. They are economic practices built for survival and for life. The methodological approach that we developed for this research used three main tools. On the one hand, a territorial metabolic analysis that we developed, which helped us map the flow of materials, labor, and energy in each of these 6 experiences. Next, a life mode survey, as we chose to call it, which aimed to explore how people work, consume, and sustain their households, including categories such as food consumption, income, care work, distribution in the household, etc. And third, participatory action research, meaning that the organizations themselves helped generate, analyze, and validate the data. This was not research done on people, but with them, very much with them. The 6 experiences that we analyzed and that we worked with were these. Firstly, the Ticoporo Farmers Market in Barinas. Each of these covered different states. States translate roughly to provinces here in China. The Ticoporo Farmers Market in Barinas is a rural food network that conducts open-air markets without intermediaries. Then there was the Farmers Network and Consumer Committees in the state of Mérida, instances linking producers and consumers without intermediaries and also conducting open-air markets. Then there was Secosesola, which is one of the longest and largest and oldest cooperatives in the country, covering different areas of their members' needs like funerary costs, health services, food distribution, among others. Then the Alto Feliz commune in Caracas, a very young and urban commune that has food and health programs, as well as a women-led waste management program. The St. Augustine Cooperative in Caracas, which is a urban, completely women-led cooperative. And lastly, the Otro Beta movement in Caracas, which is a youth-led collective working on food production and capacity building with some of the city's poorest areas, young men and women. So in order to understand what makes these experiences so interesting in terms of alternative life-centered metabolism, it's important to understand how Venezuela's economic model works in very broad terms. Venezuela's dominant economic model has long been based on oil rent and oil extraction. Wealth comes from exporting oil and importing goods, and not from producing locally. This model concentrates power, it fosters corruption, and it leaves most vulnerable people. The crisis has exposed the limits of this economic model. In this context, these popular economies are not just resisting the crises, they are challenging the very foundations of this rentier model by focusing on self-sufficiency and care work to sustain their economies. These organizations are producing mainly for their own use and not for profit. They are distributing goods and services directly without intermediaries and speculation, and they are setting prices collectively, often far below market rates based on solidarity. They also pool their resources, share tools, and prioritize those most in need within their communities through funds and specific allocations. These practices are not only more ethical, they are more resilient and sustainable. Here, we return to the concept of metabolism. Capitalism has its own metabolism, its own mechanisms through which it reproduces itself through extraction and accumulation. These popular economies propose a different metabolism, one that is centered on care, on cooperation, and sustainability. It is far from utopian or perfect, but it's real and it is a growing experience. These practices offer us a glimpse of a different system, one that sustains life rather than exploit it. In these experiences, women are the very backbone of the organization. In some cases, like the Cooperative of St. Augustine, over 80% of its members are women, and all of its directive roles are women. Women carry out food distribution, care work, community organizing, and political education. Roughly 80% of these organizations are made up of women, and on a wider scale, the very Bolivarian revolution's community level structure is near 75% women. However, despite their central role, their labor is often undervalued, even by the organizations themselves. Recognizing this and addressing it is crucial, not only in terms of equity, but in terms of the very survival of popular economies. All of these 6 experiences have a few things in common, basically aligned with 3 principles: autonomy, governance, and sustainability. These organizations operate within a very hostile financial environment. Prices are set in US dollars, inflation is a constant, and speculation is rampant. Some organizations have developed internal savings and credit systems to overcome this. Others reinvest all of their surplus into their communities instead of converting it to US dollars. All of these show commitment to autonomy, not self-isolation, but resistance to financial extraction. Many popular economies practice self-governance, or autogobierno in Spanish. They create their own decision-making systems, often based around assemblies. But they don't reject the state at all. They seek the state's recognition, its support, and legal frameworks that protect their work. These organizations challenge the binary between public and private by creating communal systems that manage resources democratically. They are forms of a new economic citizenship. Another important dimension of their work is ecology and ecological sustainability. Many organizations have shifted to agroecological methods, not just as principle or ideology, but out of sheer necessity. Chemical inputs for agriculture have become unaffordable, so people began making compost, saving seeds, using natural fertilizers, among others. In urban areas, rooftops and vacant lots are being used for medicinal gardens, etc. Recycling and reuse have become more common, and these aren't just environmental practices, they are economic and political acts that are scalable. However, despite these strengths, there are many challenges still ahead for these organizations. One striking find is that much of this labor is invisible. People work to produce food, they manage logistics, they care for children and elders, organize events, all without being paid or even acknowledged as workers in their communities. This happens especially to women, despite their labor being essential. These experiences are still gravely affected by dollarized speculative markets, and there is rising tension between autonomy and state reliance. And lastly, a big challenge ahead is the sustainability of these practices emerged from crisis once the national crisis stabilizes. Finally, popular economies in Venezuela are not marginal survival tactics. They are creative, organized, and deeply rooted alternatives to a failing system. They teach us that another economy is not only possible, it is already happening in the cracks of the crisis, and it is built on solidarity, care, and autonomy. To conclude, all of these 6 grassroots experiences in Venezuela show how popular economies can serve as foundations for life-centered, post-extractive systems. These communities prioritize ecological practices, shared value, social reproduction, resisting the financial and political pressures that threaten to dismantle them. At this forum, we will continue to hear voices from all over the global south, all most likely pointing in the same horizon. Sustainability, not as a technical fix, but as a collective reimagining of how we live, how we produce, and how we govern. I hope that these Venezuelan experiences contribute to meaningfully continue this conversation, offering both inspiration and lessons for how we might continue building solidarity and sustainability across our territories. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mariana. So now we would like to invite Dr. Luis Enrique Gomez de Mora. And so he has a PhD in geography, and he's coordinator of the International Association for Popular Cooperation of Latin America, promoting green ecological development, China-Brazil exchanges, and solidarity among the global south. Thank you, please.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I have this name my mother's gave me, but I'm more known as Luis Aref. And I'm also from the National Coordination of MST. MST is the Landless Work Movement. It's the largest peasant movement in Latin America. And I will talk a little bit later about IAPC, this International Association for Popular Cooperation. But MST gave me this task to help build this 3 years ago. And I have been living in Beijing since 2023. And it is a great honor because I'm learning a lot about China. And this is why I choose talking about the cooperation between Brazil and China, the contradictions of this cooperation, and how we are trying to change it for a new base, especially for the peasants, to build the food sovereignty and the agroecological way in Brazil, but also exchange our experience with China. And also, I'm very honored to have been preceded by my comrade from Venezuela, because this is a very inspiration process in Venezuela. So, as you know, Brazil and China is becoming a very important partner in the world. Even now, I will not talk about BRICS so much, but BRICS is one of the most important paths to try create the multipolarity nowadays. But between the two countries, we are seeing a lot increase in this cooperation. In the last year, we celebrated 50 years of the cooperation between China and Brazil. And only in the last 25 years, we increased 100 times the economic cooperation between China and Brazil. And we had more than 213 agreements, like MOU. I think almost everybody here know about it, in different areas, in agriculture, in science and technology, even in the environment. And also there are a lot Chinese companies going to be settled in Brazil. And also, this is, from the economic point of view, this is a very important trade relation for Brazil. The problem, as you can see, the trade surplus is almost 100 billion US for Brazil. But there are strong contradictions on this relationship, because As you can see in some data here, the most part of the products that we, as Brazilian, export to China are raw materials. And when we are talking about raw materials in Latin America, we are talking in benefits the elites. Because who are the owners of the land, the seeds, who organize the agribusiness, the mining in Brazil and in Latin America? It's the elite, it's the bourgeoisie. So this cooperation nowadays is still straighting, unfortunately, in Brazil, the bourgeois, especially the comprador bourgeoisie, that is also the most dangerous people against China, because they talk a lot bad about China. They create ideology, about a wrong ideology about China in our country. So you can see 75% it's of our exportation. It's concentrated only in 3 products: soybean, oil, and iron ore. And also it is promoting the deindustrialization or reprimarization of our economy. And combined with, as Mariana said before, combined with a very challenges in ecological way, as a lot fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, agrochemicals, and also social issues, because it's straightening the bourgeoisie in our country. For the other side, as Brazilian, we import more developed products from China. So this is an unbalanced cooperation. How we can solve it or help solve it? Because I think, as I put in the first page, both President Xi Jinping and President Lula believes in another kind of cooperation. They really believe that this cooperation needs to promote the joint development from the country. Or, as President Xi is saying, the shared community for future, global future, or Brazilian and China future. So to try help to fix it, different organizations from the global south, from Latin America, from Africa, and from Asia, built BAOBA, the International Association for Popular Cooperation. We were built in 2019, and MSC is one of the founders of this organization, to help promote the scientific and technological exchange between the countries in the global south, mainly focused in agroecology and food sovereignty for the peasants. Because we have FAO, but they are not support in reality the peasant needs. So organizations from Argentina, Brazil, Zambia, Ghana, Morocco, Nepal built this platform to connect movements, of course, people's organization, but also universities, research institutes, even governments, to create this and also companies, enterprise, to create this kind of matrix to solve some technological bottlenecks to advance the agroecology. So this is the pillars of our work, and after we can discuss more in the Q&A session, but these are the pillars. So science and technology exchange, restructuring value chains from the peasant's point of view. I will not talk about one of the chains a lot, but just so you know, for instance, cocoa. Cocoa is based in the peasantry system in the West Africa and Latin America. Almost 70% of the whole cocoa produced in the world came from these two regions. But it's a very poor value chain, production chain, because the peasant could have the profits from this. The profits are with the Europe and US companies, you know? So we are trying help to restructure this kind of production chains, networking the movements, create this people-to-people exchange, and intergovernmental relationships. And we are focused mainly in this 6 area. As you know, as peasants, we have a lot needs, but we are focused more in these 6 areas: mechanization, crop development, energies, bioinputs, popular urbanism. This is more for the working class in the big cities and the global south, and environment. So to show to you some concrete cases about what we are doing, I choose 3 cases in this relation between Brazil and China. Baobá worked with other countries, but I choose these 3. The first one I'm calling as ecological civilization, a concept from China, and agroecology. So this picture, it's one settlement of MSC, of the Landless Works Movement. For the Chinese comrades that are here, it's like the village here, okay? So the people struggle to have agrarian reform in Brazil, and when they achieve this goal, they create this territory. I call it settlement. And this settlement is producing rice, organic rice. So to produce a lot in large scale organic rice, you need, for instance, bioinputs. And we don't have so developed technology in bioinputs in Brazil. So Baobá, for 2-3 years, looking for who in China is doing this technology for bioinputs. We also looked in Ghana, in other countries, but in China, we achieved find some professors from the Chinese Agricultural University, the most important agriculture in China, and the one is like top 3 or top 5, depends the ranking in the world. And we found one very important professor called Professor Li Ji, who is leading the technology to treat the organic waste and convert it in organic fertilizer, building a factory to do it. Okay, we have the compost, but to do compost, we need like 3 months, 6 months. With this technology, we can do it in 21 days. So this solves a very important problem in the cities, organic waste, and a very important bottleneck in the camp. It means organic fertilizer, building a factory. So this is amazing. So we find them, and we are building this cooperation to bring this technology to Brazil, but not buy the technology, to developing together the next steps of this technology. So here you can see João Pedro Stedley, the leader from MSC, visiting the factory in Suzhou with Caroline. Caroline is the professor from Brazil who is working in China Agricultural University to merge some knowledge from Brazil with this technology. And there is Professor Li Ji. And then we present also to President Dilma Rousseff, the president of NDB, because we think this is a very good case to be organized by the NDB. The second one is about also a concept that the professors presented before me, the rural revitalization, a Chinese concept. and agrarian development, a Brazilian concept, and new quality of productive force, a Chinese concept. What we are doing in Brazil, the mechanization rate in the peasant, it's only 14.5%. In China, it's about 73%. So this is very this is a historical problem in the peasants, because we don't have in Brazil the machines, and China has like 8,000 of factories for agriculture machines. So we are promoting the exchange between companies and also the Chinese Agriculture University with another Professor Yami Li, and we are like make the showcases of these machineries, not for then export to Brazil, but to attract them to build the factory in Brazil and produce small machines for the peasants. And I put new quality of productive force because there are one company, very important, a SOE, a Chinese SOE called Sinomac Digital Technologies, who is also testing a new platform for agriculture, digital agriculture there. This platform is now monitoring 1 million tractors in China. And this is the first time that Sinomac is promoting this technology overseas China. And the last one is the poverty alleviation, a Chinese concept, and the struggle against hunger, a concept from Brazil. Here you can see the Ministry of the International Department of the Communist Party of China with the Ministry of Social Development from Brazil and the Ministry of Agrarian Development in Brazil also. And the leaders from different movements, the MSC and different movements in Brazil, when we promote last year a big seminar to try and merge or exchange the policies from China and from Brazil to struggle against hunger. So to finalize, here were the visit of President Xi Jinping in Brazil last year, when President Lula presented me to President Xi to talk about this interaction to what I'm calling the new basis of South-South cooperation. Because President Lula is supporting a lot this. It is not a quick change. We are talking about 50 years between China and Brazil, not controlled by the working class and the peasants. So the challenge now is how we can improve this, building the priorities from the people's organization in Brazil, in Latin America, mapping and connecting institutions and government, pushing the bureaucracy to go ahead, because there are a lot of MOUs between the countries, but you cannot see the follow-ups. So we are trying to push this because we have these MOUs to make these changes, and having the people's organization as a equal partners in the official cooperation. It means when we have the Ministry of Agrarian Development from Brazil, we also can have MSC, because this is the way in Brazil that we can change this very important cooperation, not only for Brazil and China, but for the world. We really believe China and Brazil can bring to the world new concepts of how can we build a new society for the global humanity. So that's all. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I think what Luis is showing us is the a very deep exchange between China and Brazil, and at different levels, at the level of the state, but also at the level of promoting community development on the ground. And I think both in Brazil and in Venezuela, we see the governments promoting sustainable policies, which give the context and the main ground for the development of the communities for commoning, etc. So starting from in the year 2011, when the first South-South Forum on Sustainability was held, we were also having a parallel project called Comparisons of 7 Emerging Countries, which we call E7. And so the 7 countries were China, India, Indonesia, Brazil, Venezuela, Turkey, and also South Africa. So, but then Samir Amin, our friend, he joked said that they should be called maybe most of the 7. At least maybe 5 or 6 of them should not be called the emerging ones. They should be called the submerging ones because of this whole international global context. And they are still being subject to the global division of labor and still quite a long way from the strategies of delinking that he proposed. But then we published the Emerging 7 Countries book in the last 2 years in Chinese, and we have already sold 280,000 copies. So that is in Chinese, and Hernan was saying that he would like to translate that into Spanish so that they could be circulated in Latin America. And I think there's a lot that we can be learning from each other and supporting each other, just as what Professor Wen just now was highlighting, that in the first South-South Forum, we emphasized the triple S, sovereignty, solidarity, and security for the people.